This is a man's world. This is a man's world.
How does jurisdiction over the subject matter determine? In Ursua versus Republic of the Philippines, the Supreme Court emphasized that subject matter jurisdiction is determined by the allegations in the complaint and the applicable law at the time of filing. In this case, the Sandigan Bayan has jurisdiction over the civil case number 0033A because it involved ill-gotten wealth and public funds or so-called coconut levy funds, which fall under its exclusive jurisdiction as provided by Presidential Decree number 1606.
Are you okay? You seem a bit off today.
It's nothing. Just a pharmacy keeping me busy. You know how stressful it is.
Are you sure that's all? You can tell me anything.
It's just that I have some expenses ready. I'll manage it. Promise. Kapit sa batali. This is what people do when they are in dire need of money. But in the desire to get ahead, sometimes they sink even deeper.
Annielyn? What is this? This amount? This interest? These are insane!
I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could handle it.
How could you let this happen? You need to do something now!
I thought I could pay it back, but it would get better.
I will not allow these greedy people to take advantage of us.
Who should decide land disputes, court or DNR? In Baguno versus Agabao, the Supreme Court ruled that disputes involving technical land matters, such as the identification and classification of land, should be resolved first by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DNR, under the doctrine of primary jurisdiction. The court emphasized that administrative agencies like the DNR have the expertise to address such issues before they are elevated to judicial courts. It upheld the DNR's findings and dismissed the petition, affirming that courts should defer to administrative bodies on specialist matters within their competence.
I understand this is a difficult situation. Let's discuss your options under Shari'ah Law. Under Shari'ah Law, charging excessive interest is prohibited. We have a chance here. We can file for a case that seeks accounting and restitution of what you've lost.
Why does court adherence to jurisdiction persist? In Arwego versus Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court ruled that once jurisdiction over a case is properly acquired by a court, it cannot be ousted by subsequent events or changes in the law. The court affirmed that the action for compulsory recognition and enforcement of successional rights was governed by the Civil Code as it was filed before the Family Code took effect, thereby preserving the trial court's jurisdiction. This ruling underscores the principle that adherence to jurisdiction ensures stability and finality in judicial proceedings, regardless of intervening circumstances.
Your Honor, we motion for dismissal. The Sharia court lacks jurisdiction.
Let the record reflect the court's ruling on this matter. After careful consideration, the court finds that it lacks jurisdiction over the subject matter of this complaint. The case centers on alleged violations of Act No. 265514, commonly known as the Usury Law, which falls outside the purview of this Sharia court. While motions to dismiss are generally disallowed under the special rules of procedure for Sharia courts, an exemption applies here. Jurisdictional defects, particularly those as evident as this one, warrant immediate dismissal sua sponte. Furthermore, though both parties identify as Muslims, the transactions in question involve riba, a practice explicitly prohibited under Islamic law. This prohibition does not, however, confer automatic jurisdiction upon this court when the substantive issue is governed by a secular statute. Acting on the incidents, the STC issued the now assailed order, the dispositive portion of which reads, wherefore, the motion for reconsideration in the first case, civil case number 2013-187, is denied. The complaint in the second case, civil case number 2013-188, is dismissed without prejudice to its refiling before the proper court. So ordered.
In the first hearing, a blow greeted the couple. The case was dismissed. It seemed hopeless.
Can jurisdiction over subject matter be object even on appeal? In Republic versus Bantige Point Development Corporation, the Supreme Court ruled that jurisdiction over the subject matter can be questioned at any stage of the proceedings, even on appeal. The court held that jurisdiction is conferred by law and cannot be waived or acquired through estoppel, rejecting the argument that the Republic was barred from raising the issue despite its active participation in lower court proceedings. While affirming the municipal trial court's jurisdiction, the court remanded the case to determine whether the land in question is part of the alienable or disposable lands of the public domain. We won't give up. We will file for motion for reconsideration. We will fight for your rights here in Sharia Court. This is the right place to hear your grievances.
What happens when the court lacks jurisdiction? In El Dorado Consulting Realty and Development Group Corporation versus Pacific Union Insurance Company, the Supreme Court ruled that the Construction Industry Arbitration Commission lacked jurisdiction over the case because Pacific Union Insurance Company was not a party to the owner-contractor agreement containing the arbitration clause. The court emphasized that jurisdiction over the subject matter is conferred by law and cannot be established by consent or acquiescence of the parties. Consequently, the SAYAC's decision was set aside and the case was dismissed due to the lack of jurisdiction, highlighting that a court or adjudicative body must have jurisdiction over the subject matter to dispose of a case on its merits.
It is important to remember that the purpose of Sharia court is to give justice to Muslims in civil matters. Your Honor, I draw attention to Article 140 of Presidential Decree 1083. These provisions grants Shari'ah District Courts concurrent jurisdiction with civil courts over real actions involving Muslim parties provided they do not involve forcible entry or unlawful detainer. Our case, a contract dispute over usury between Muslims parties, falls squarely under this statute. The contract was executed under customary terms without specifying secular law. Further supporting jurisdiction, We respectfully submit that this court is empowered to hear this case under Article 143(2)(b), aligning with the legislative intent to preserve the legal identity of Filipino Muslims. Dismissing this case is contrary to this goal. Regardless of the specific law involved, the fact that both parties are Muslims grant us jurisdiction.
When can the court use jurisdiction by estoppel? In Arsiga versus Baluyot, the Supreme Court ruled that the petitioners were barred by estoppel from questioning the regional trial court's jurisdiction after actively participating in all stages of the case without raising the issue earlier. While the court acknowledged a technical jurisdictional defect due to the omission of the property assessed value in the complaint, it applied the doctrine of estoppel by laches, as petitioners only raised the issue 12 years after the case was filed and after they had already sought relief from the RTC. The court emphasized that estoppel applies when a party belatedly challenges jurisdiction after losing on the merits and fully engaging in the trial proceedings.
After careful study, the court acknowledges its original error. From the foregoing, the court finds that the STC erred in dismissing the complaints below for lack of jurisdiction. Hence, a remand is in order. Wherefore, premises considered, the consolidated petitions are granted. The order dated 13th of December 2013 is reversed and set aside. The consolidated cases are remanded to the Court of Origin for continuation of proceedings. The 5th Shari'ah District Court of Cotabato City is directed to hear the consolidated cases with utmost dispatch. So ordered.
Can the court use equity jurisdiction for justice? In spouses Antonio and Monette Prieto versus Bank of the Philippine Islands, the Supreme Court ruled that equity jurisdiction cannot be invoked to disregard procedural rules when there is no compelling reason to do so. The court upheld the petitioner's liability for unpaid loans, emphasizing that procedural lapses such as delays in prosecuting claims do not automatically warrant equitable relief. It affirmed that justice must align with established rules and equity cannot override clear legal obligations for procedural requirements.
When does non-payment of filing fees affect jurisdiction? In the case of former Municipal Mayor Clareto A. Poblete and others versus Commission on Audit, the Supreme Court upheld the Commission on Audit's decision to dismiss the petitioner's appeal due to their failure to pay filing fees on time. The court emphasized the timely payment of filing fees is a jurisdictional requirement that cannot be waived, affirming COA's authority to enforce this procedural rule. The ruling also rejected the petitioner's defenses, including the usurious doctrine and quantum merit, affirming their liability for the disputed transactions.
Subran Ya Allah into the Sharia court, we were given a chance to rise again.
This case shows that the Sharia court is an important instrument of justice for Muslims. By understanding our rights and trusting in the Sharia system, we can achieve true justice.